Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us in prison. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Come into this place of peace, and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory, and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of power, and let its vision change your heart. Come into this place of peace, and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory, and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of power, and let its vision change your heart.
Good morning, and welcome to White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church. We're delighted to have you here, whether you are in this space or attending virtually. It's good to be together, a community of youth, adults, and children sharing the values of courage, reverence, and compassion. I'm Jillian Lampert. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a member of our board of directors. Every Sunday, our ministers and staff will be running social hour from the social hall. Please join in person or via Zoom, beginning at 10:05, 5 minutes after the service. It is a 20-minute session of sharing in randomized small groups, and it is designed to provide a deep and intentional welcome to all. We've heard from many of you how important this time has been to connect and to meet new people. If you prefer an informal time of mingling, please feel free to do so in the Emerson alcove. Please be sure to sign up for our weekly e-news if you haven't already. We condense all the weekly news and happenings into one weekly email that goes out on Wednesdays. Service participants today include Reverend Sarah, Teal Bassett, and Reverend Jack, with behind-the-scenes support from Aaron Scott and Amy Peterson-Derrick. Music today is from the Bangsons, Juliana Wallace, and Laura Stone-Girard. Now, a message from some of our members about our annual pledge campaign.
I've been coming to White Bear Unitarian for a long time, since I was a teenager. And I started coming because my grandmother came to White Bear Unitarian. And now I get to bring my daughter there, which is really special to have a fourth generation in such an amazing church. But Lewis has a different story, and one of the things I appreciate about our church is that newcomers and people that have been going for a long time can both be really important parts of the community.
Right, so I came probably around 4 years ago when we were first starting to date each other, and it was such an amazing experience being in that sanctuary. It was the first place that I had been, a spiritual meeting place where the readings were not scripture, and the sermons, since I've been going, have been just amazing. The first one that I listened to just blew my mind open. So it's been just so important for us to support the church throughout this time with what we can, and it feels like supporting that space, a space for all people, and a space that is going to be open and special for future generations as well.
And I would just add, I think it's been so important for us to have Sunday mornings to recenter and to remember and be called back to the people we want to be in this world every week together. I feel like it's the true sense of worship, that we're remembering what we believe is worthy and that we should tend to it.
We were going to tell you a little bit about why we love WBUUC.
Mainly we like it, we love it because of the community of people.
And because of the inspiring worship, the music, the words, the readings, the stories.
And we love this church because it's one of the ways that we participate in the wider community. We do that through the offerings, that are the plate collections that leave the church to support other organizations and energies, and through the work of committees, which we may or may not actually serve on, but we are able to support. And mostly, we love this church because of its daring.
And also we love and support this church because of the support we've received from the church and for that many other people have received as well.
Once per year in March, we ask our people to think about their financial contribution to the church and try their best to predict their gift to the church in the next fiscal year. This pledge campaign is crucial so that our board can present a right-sized budget as we continue to sustain this impactful spiritual community. It is a pledge of confidence in this church, and if you haven't already, I hope you'll join me in increasing your pledge from last year. Please do it soon to save yourselves from getting pesky calls from the pledge team and to save them from making those calls. As of Friday afternoon, we are at 41.7% of the pledge goal, with 108 households pledging $396,000. 57% of those households are increasing their pledge from last year. If you haven't done so, we encourage you to contemplate this financial commitment today and send in your pledge card. You're also welcome to fill out a pledge card in the lobby or put it in the box. And if you have questions about the pledge drive for next year, a member of our governing board will be available for conversation at the pledge drive table. Welcome to our church. Together we grow our souls and serve the world in love. come in. Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes. For here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together we make it a holy place. Teal Bassett will lead us in our chalice lighting.
At 24, I was living with my boyfriend, and with the severe recession in 2009, he had to move to the Chicago area to take a job. This left me with a dilemma. We could break up, and I could stay in Stillwater, where all my family and friends were, or I could move to Illinois with him and continue our adventure together. I decided to move with him. I didn't know it then, but this was some radical faith. I didn't know if we were going to work out, but I wanted to try. Plus, to make it even more daring, this guy hadn't even officially invited me to move with him. I basically started packing my bags and told him to look for an apartment that I would like too. Moving away from home allowed me to discover more of who I was. And I found I needed a community and friends in this new city beyond just my partner. Together, we took another leap of faith and visited the DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church. There, we found a wonderful, welcoming community of unique people searching for understanding and striving to make a better world. And in the 3 years that I lived in Illinois, I gained a spouse, a newborn daughter, and I became a Unitarian Universalist. Now we live in Stillwater again, but I'd have a very different life if I hadn't stepped into the possibility of doing something new. Faith, to me, is brave, and being a person of faith means we don't always know the right answers or do the right thing, but we try, and that's our covenant to one another. We light our chalice today in celebration of the faith each of us has in holding one another in covenant and the radical hope it takes to share oneself and work together toward a better world.
Join me in our opening words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now I invite you to rise in body or spirit to sing our opening hymn, which is We're Building a New Way, number 1017 in the teal hymnal. The words are also on the screen. I invite you, if you're present in the room, to sing quietly behind your mask, but at home, please sing out, sing out. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working
We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, the world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
Good morning. So this morning I wanted to share with you all something really special to me. It is this bag of stones, 5 smooth stones, and I've had them since I was 14. Ever since then, these stones have moved with me wherever I have gone. They have lived on my dresser top in my childhood bedroom. They have lived in dorm rooms and apartments, and now they live on my altar at home. These 5 smooth stones were a coming-of-age gift from the minister at my home congregation, and they represent the 5 smooth stones of liberal religion. And this was an idea from a Unitarian minister named James Luther Adams. James Luther Adams was born in the early 1900s. He was a minister and a teacher, and he spent lots of time studying different stories and ideas. One of the stories that James Luther Adams was interested in was the story in the Hebrew Scriptures about David and Goliath. David was the youngest and smallest of many brothers who lived in a land called Israel. And they lived at a time when the Philistine army was getting ready to invade. And their army included this great big giant named Goliath. Now it happened that not a single soul in Israel thought it was possible to defeat this giant, no one except for David. And so David volunteered. As he prepared to meet the giant, he thought about what he would need to defeat this giant, and he decided that what he needed was not a big suit of armor or a big sword, but what he required instead was something small, something that he could always keep at his side. And so he stopped at the riverbed, and he collected 5 smooth stones, and he put them in his pouch. And it was with these that he defeated Goliath. And so this story made James Luther Adams think. He thought, even if we never ever have to face a big actual giant in our lives like Goliath, sometimes the things that face us in our lives feel like big scary giants. And what are we going to do about that? And so he wondered, what are the 5 things that we need to keep at our sides as Unitarian Universalists to feel like the way forward is possible? And so he wrote about the 5 smooth stones of liberal religion. The first thing he thought was, you know what? Every single day, I am learning something new. The world and what I experience and know is constantly transforming. New wisdom is being revealed each and every day to all of us, no matter where we go or who we're with, and we're always, always learning something new. This first stone reminds us that we're always learning. The second thing he said is that it is always important that we seek out community. Most importantly, that these communities are freely chosen. The second stone reminds us to be in community. The third thing he said is that it is our job to work for loving community once we're in these communities. And so this third stone reminds us to love. The fourth thing he said is that we need to look for ways to live the things that we believe out loud in the world each and every day. It's not just enough to believe them, we have to do them too. This means we can't just believe in a loving world, we need to actively look for ways to live it. The fourth smooth stone calls us to action. The last thing he said was that even though there are times when things might get tough, all of these things, the fact that we're always learning, that we are in community together, that we work for love, that we are people of action, this is all enough to bring us hope. Even if what faces us feels like a giant or is an actual giant, this fifth smooth stone calls us to find and grow that deep sense of hope and let our hope guide us in all we do.
Join me in a time of meditation or prayer. Find a comfortable place for your body, whatever it may be, feet on the ground, connection to the earth. Take a deep breath. Find a feeling of connection and grace. As we gather this morning, we're a community of about 40 people in this room and about 66 households online. We come together this morning to embrace one another, to hold each other up in our sorrows and raise each other up in our celebrations. We hold members and friends of our community who are grieving losses, new and well-aged. Grief lives in our bones as we move through this world. We hold members and friends who are struggling with addiction and those who love and care for them. We hold members and friends who are living with anxiety, depression, and other mental health diagnoses, and those who love and care for them. We hold the members and friends, families whose young people are struggling. This pandemic has taken a toll on our teens and young families more than most of us are aware. We hold also these members and friends. Ingrid Boersma is having low back surgery on Monday, and hopefully they'll be able to fix pinched nerve roots at several levels by removing several bone spurs. Lori Gashcott is having foot surgery on 3/24 and would appreciate our prayers. We hold also the names of all of those in your hearts who you are invited now to speak aloud into this silence. We hold them all in love. Amen.
Your gifts to this congregation are many and varied, including giving of your time and talents. Today, we ask for a financial gift to help sustain the work of this congregation as together we grow our souls and serve the world. Thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life we live together. Our first reading this morning is Lament by Wilfred Wilson Gibson. We who are left, how shall we look again happily on the sun or feel the rain without remembering how they who went ungrudgingly and spent their all for us loved also the sun and rain? A bird among the rain-wet lilacs sings, but we, how shall we turn to the little things and listen to the birds and winds and streams made holy by their dreams and not feel the heartbreak in the heart of things? The second reading is an excerpt from Reverend Jen Bailey's book, To My Beloveds, Letters on Faith, Race, Loss, and Radical Hope. The church women of my childhood were progenitors of a lineage of social healing, grounded in radical hope. For them, hope was and is not the same thing as optimism. It is not a feeling, nor a desired future state that is the substance of our longings. Hope is the everyday practice of believing that the material conditions of the world can be better and that we have the capacity to bring about that change in the here and now. And our music is from the amazing musical duo, the Bangsons, and they let us share this video.
Hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. The part of you that is not all right, yeah, is also the part that loves the light. Comes from the place suffering is the part that calls in change, and you don't have to feel ashamed. There is nothing to forgive. The part of you that is crying out is the part that wants to live. Yeah, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. When your world is burning down, well, getting hot is a sane reaction, but one in need of action, because your spirit needs protection. So gather up your sinew and gather up your faction. Hope is not a feeling, hope is an action. I said hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said hope comes. We are not all right. I said hope comes. We are not all right. Where the hurt comes. I'm gonna fall down on my knees. That's not living. I'm gonna say, will you help me, please? That's not living. I'm gonna say I'm not all right. That's not living. I'm just trying to make it through this night. Yeah. That's not living. I'm gonna fall down on my knees. Yeah. Oh, will we say, help me, please? Help me, please. We can say, hey, we are not all right. We are not all right. We can help each other get through the night. Because hope comes from the center of the hurt, in the middle of the dirt. We'll plant a seed and watch it grow into something we don't already know.
Like many of you, I'm sure, I sometimes buck at the word faith. It sometimes runs the risk of sounding a little too certain, or reminding me of a time when I felt compelled to speak out loud a creed that didn't make sense to me. At the time, I equated faith with certainty and thought its opposite was doubt. If I had doubts or uncertainty, that meant I was losing my faith, which was a scary thought back then. Since going to seminary, I have shifted my perspective on the word faith, and I owe much of that shift to the work of James Luther Adams, but we'll get to that later. First, some context. For about the first 15 years of my life, I was part of my parents' church, and for me, there wasn't much choice or agency in the matter. But around the age of 15, some friends and I got really into religion and theology. When we weren't getting into occasional trouble, we actually stayed up all night debating the 5 points of Calvinism. I know, right? Quite the party animals. I guess I've always been a bit of a theology nerd, but I think that was because I was very curious about the systems that we use to perceive and interpret meaning. At the time, I was confident that there was only one correct way to view the world, and I thought it would be such a strange coincidence if I had been accidentally born into the one true faith. Because of this persistent doubt, I went searching and found a faith that differed from that of my parents. My commitments to that faith lasted about 6 more years until I was 21 and out of the closet, and then I decided to end my commitment to a restricting faith that didn't accept me in my fullness. As a small-town boy from northern Minnesota who went to the Twin Cities for college, my world was expanded by the people I was meeting and the stories I was encountering. I was especially curious about people from other faiths and other cultures. I was hungry for a search and a quest. I was open to questions, and thus began a decade of spiritual pilgrimage and travel. A lot of this travel took place in the world of ideas and stories, but I also did some major global travel. I would later categorize this decade as my embodiment of Unitarian Universalism's fourth principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. I wanted to know what it meant to be a spiritual person, and I was still wrestling with what it meant to be a person of faith. Enter James Luther Adams, or JLA as he's lovingly called. Amy mentioned his 5 smooth stones in her story, but I want to give you a little more background, and my thanks to author George Beach, who wrote a definitive book on JLA. James Luther Adams was a UU theologian, professor, and minister, born in 1901. He spent time in Germany in the mid-1930s and collaborated there with others who were working against the rise of Nazism. He wrote a lot about liberal religion from inside of it, but still also critiquing it. He knew that liberal religion would be a powerful force in the world, but he cautioned it against the belief in the inevitability of progress, which can lead to inaction. One of his core values was the understanding that church membership should be a voluntary association, freely given, not an inherited or genetic or cultural one. For him, this voluntary association allows for a person's faith to be critical, self-questioning, and authentic. And this authentic faith can even lead to religious awareness, or as Emerson calls it, emotion passed through the fire of thought. Adams railed against the common practice of defining faith in an immature or overly simplistic way, like some kind of straw man that you could just tip right over. He argued that many people's understanding of faith was merely arrested development. Instead, he called for an understanding of faith that went beyond creedal statements or childhood beliefs. He called for a faith that was mature and authentic and examined. Riffing off the phrase, "an unexamined life isn't worth living," he often repeated an adage from a colleague of his, "an unexamined faith is not worth faithing." He makes a strong connection between faith and commitments, between faith and confidence. And he asks, will your commitments prove to be grounded and authentic over time in the face of the challenges of human existence? I've adapted a short excerpt of James Luther Adams' writing for gender inclusion, and I'm going to share it at length. The question concerning faith is not, shall I be a person of faith? The proper question is, rather, which faith is mine? Or better, which faith should be mine? For whether a person craves prestige, wealth, security, or amusement, whether a person lives for country, for science, for God, or for plunder, that person is demonstrating a faith, is showing that they put confidence in something. She may go to church regularly. He may profess some denominational affiliation. They may repeat their creed regularly. But this person may actually give their deepest loyalty to something quite different from these things. Find out what that is, and you have found their religion. You will have found her God. It will be the thing she gets most excited about, the thing that most deeply concerns her. But speak against it in the pulpit, and he may rush religiously to the defense of what really concerns him. So what is it that really concerns you? What has your deepest loyalty? These are the questions we should be asking right now. For those of you who heard our guest preacher last week, she described this time we're in as a time of VUCA, V-U-C-A. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. In this moment of VUCA, what are you putting your confidence in? Where do you put your faith? For some of you, it might be family, self, or community. For some, it's God or science or the universe or the great mystery. Some of you cling to the hope that the moral arc of the universe will bend toward justice, while others believe that the bending doesn't happen on its own. It takes actual change agents. You'll have a chance during social hour to chat more and share your answer to this question. Where do you put your faith? Earlier, Sarah read an excerpt from Reverend Jen Bailey's book, where she argues for a community of faith that is rooted in radical hope. And she asks us to wonder about where we have placed our roots. Where are you planted? Where do you hope to get sustenance? These roots hold the memories, and the roots are watered by the stream. The stream right here outside our church window is crucial to our watershed up here, and it is also an apt metaphor for this community. I look at it often outside my window. It's an apt metaphor for the ministries and the ministers and the lay leaders who have come before and without whom we would not exist. Even though we may have never met them or don't even know most of their names, we are impacted by their actions and touched by their memories. Bailey says, collective memory helps us glean the lessons of our historical institutions, discern that which we can and should carry forward, and let go of that which no longer serves us. This idea helps us frame and reframe our commitments. Our faith is dynamic and ever-changing. We establish new priorities, both on a congregational level and throughout our whole association of UU congregations. I want to tell you the story of when I first joined a faith community as an adult. I had been living in a strong and supportive, intentional community, but I began to feel the sands shift a bit. Many long-term members had moved out and moved on, and I was a decade into my time of spiritual pilgrimage. The community was down to 5 people, myself, my partner at the time, and his 3 friends. It was lovely and magical in a lot of ways, but I knew I needed more. I'm not going to pretend like I was able to predict the end of my relationship with my partner, but I did at least know I needed a community outside of those 4 lovely people with whom I lived. I needed a community where I could grow and give and receive, and that's when I found a UU church, my first foray into Unitarian Universalism. I didn't know what to expect, but I felt at home right away. On my very first Sunday, I ended up sitting next to a person who happened to be on the welcome team. And she was very welcoming and warm and asked great questions. We are, by the way, still friends this day. I listened to a sermon preached by a lesbian about how our broader church movement celebrates the beautiful and diverse spectrum of human sexuality between consenting adults. Wow. I didn't know I could sit in a pew in a church and hear such a progressive and powerful message that began to offer healing for some of my own hurts. This was definitely the church for me. While a member there, I ended up forming relationships that supported me during my breakup, and it was also a place where hope was able to blossom out of the scorched earth that was my hurt. What brought you here to this community of hope and faithfulness? What was here or is here that gives you confidence? In the song we just heard, Hope Comes from the Place Where the Hurt Comes, the Banksons sing about some of the ways that hope becomes an action. Prayer, community, lament, and resilience. While Abigail expresses them one by one, Sean repeats the line, "That's an act of living." She says, "Gonna fall down on my knees." Prayer. That's an act of living. I'm going to say, will you help me, please? Community support. That's an act of living. I'm going to say I'm not all right. Lament and truth-telling. That's an act of living. I'm just trying to make it through this night. Resilience. That's an act of living. They end the song with a statement of faith. We can help each other. We'll plant a seed and watch it grow into something we don't already know. Planting that seed is the act of faith that this song celebrates. Hope is not a feeling, it's an action. And this same hope and faith harken back to the people that started this very community 66 years ago with an annual budget of $1,400. They couldn't have even begun to imagine the possibility that we have grown to become. And I hope that you continue the legacy by placing hope in the future of this community. There are so many ways for you to show your faith in this community. I hope you make a pledge of confidence in the church's financial well-being, and I hope you step into one or two commitments here. They don't have to be hard ones or huge sacrifices, just meaningful ones that are reciprocal and mutual. Our spring theme circles are kicking off next week. We're always looking for people to help steward and care for this land that we're on. If you want to be a land stewardship volunteer or help repair and maintain the playground so it can serve our youth and the youth of this community, please let me know. Maybe the commitment you're ready for is supporting our religious education program, or making outreach phone calls, or writing cards of blessing. You could always serve on the Sunday morning welcome team. And pretty soon we hope to launch a new program matching available drivers and cooks with those who need occasional rides and meals. If any of this suits your fancy, call in now. Our operators are standing by. Y'all, I know it's been such a strange 2 years, and the opportunities to serve this community have been few and far between. Well, that's all changing now. This community needs you and needs your faith in its future and in all the possibilities that it holds. I hope you throw your hat into the ring with us as we nurture our sense of radical hope, clinging to a belief that progress is possible, though not inevitable, and that it takes people with capacity to be agents of change. May it be so, and make it so. Amen. Our closing hymn is Be Ours a Religion, number 1058 in the Teal hymnal. This one is going to be new for many of you, but it was a beloved hymn at my internship church in Kansas City. It speaks to the broadness and depth of our faith and our ability to reframe religious terms with nuance and new meanings. We'll sing it through 3 times. Julie will sing it for the first time, and we can join for the second and third. Please rise in body or spirit.
Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere, its temple all space, its shrine the good heart,
Our closing words today are from 1959, spoken by Reverend Arthur Foote for this specific congregation. 63 years ago, there were 66 members of this church gathered over on Matamidi Avenue for the dedication service for the White Bear Unitarian Church. And Arthur Foote delivered this welcome that still reverberates today. We welcome you as fellow champions of liberal religion, of religion that calls for nothing less than the remaking of human nature and the transforming of the world. Of religion that is an undiscourageable affirmation of the worth of life and of the unrealized potentials in humanity, which we must learn how to realize at the very price of survival. Undiscourageable affirmation of the worth of life. Go in peace, fellow champions.